money that's been available in the financial markets has been, key to the company's historic growth.
We felt like the opportunity was there for us to acquire assets that other companies didn't want, so we were likely going to be the buyer of choice. And as we got into the business, it proved to be the case.
But I think one of the most unique things that Hercules offers is really a culture where people can come in and think for themselves. We're very creative. We move very fast, decisive in what we do, and that creates opportunities.
We believe if you're not growing, you need to get out of that business.
With demand for energy rising across the globe, the search for oil and gas and the development of our resources takes the industry into extreme environments. Many of these developments occur in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the Middle East, Western Africa, and India. Drilling in 60 to 300 feet of water and then beyond to 10,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet is no easy task. I'm Richard Loomis. Today, we're visiting with one of the companies on the front line of these developments, Hercules Offshore. Our discussion today begins with Randy Stilley, Chairman and CEO, and Lisa Rodriguez, Executive Vice President and CFO. Thank you both for coming. Hercules is now the largest operator of jackups in the Gulf of Mexico and the fourth largest in the world. How did all this begin?
Well, it became apparent to me and several other people several years ago that the major drilling contractors, particularly the publicly traded drilling contractors, were focused almost entirely on the deep water and high specification jackup markets. We thought that was an opportunity to get into this business. It was a very fragmented business, and it was in a segment where, quite frankly, we felt like the opportunity was there for us to acquire assets that other companies didn't want, so we were likely going to be the buyer of choice. And as we got into the business, it proved to be the case. We started the business with the acquisition of 5 jackups from Parker Drilling Company for only $39 million. In fact, just one of those jackups today would sell for more than that. We followed that very quickly with the acquisition of the lift boat business from Global Industries for $52 million. And again, that was a very attractive price for those assets. The price you'd have to pay today for those things is probably 7 or 8 times that.
What are some of the other milestones that have occurred over the last 3 years?
Well, certainly those 2 acquisitions, but I think if you look at what we did after that, we followed that with the acquisition of 17 lift boats from Superior Energy Services that really expanded our business in the Gulf of Mexico in lift boats. We followed that with another lift boat acquisition, the Laborde lift boat fleet, and we also bought the Danos and Carol lift boat business, which positioned us to move into West Africa. That was our very first international operation. At the time of our IPO, we had 0 international exposure. Today, about 30% of our business comes from outside the Gulf of Mexico.
Randy, that's a lot of growth. Lisa, what criteria do you use when you're evaluating these acquisitions?
Well, there's 2 main criteria. First, it has to be a strategic fit. And to be strategic, it can either be a growth for our current core markets, or it can be a new market that we're targeting. And the second is financial. It needs to meet our hurdle rates, and we target, as Randy mentioned, we look at our return on capital employed, and for an acquisition, it has to be at least 15%. And when we look at it, we don't just look in the near term. We look kind of through cycle, a mid-cycle return of 15% for the acquisition.
In light of that, how does Delta Towing fit into your strategy?
That's a little bit different business for us. It's a business that we weren't in previously. I think we're looking at that potentially as a growth opportunity because it's in a very fragmented segment of the business. We could sell that business. We could grow that business. There are a lot of opportunities there.
Lisa, there seems to be a lot of money chasing the energy industry these days. Has Hercules been able to take advantage of this?
And we have. The money that's been available in the financial markets has been, key to the company's historic growth. We, since our inception, we have done an IPO, 2 equity follow-ons, and a few debt offerings as well, the most recent being the $900 million term loan for the Todco acquisition. And what we've really done is we've tried to maintain a conservative capital structure and allowing us financial flexibility to take advantage of future opportunities.
Well, since you bring it up, what were some of the key elements that brought you to the Todco acquisition?
Obviously it was right down our core market, with the shallow market jackups, and it met our hurdle rates. It also gave us a growth platform for the infrastructure within the company.
Randy, that's a lot of companies and a lot of assets. How have all these acquisitions affected the culture of Hercules?
Well, I think we were fortunate in that we had a very experienced management team from the start, typically about 25 years experience in the industry. We're also fortunate in that a lot of the people that we've acquired with these acquisitions are people that have worked together in the past. It's actually a very small industry in some respects. There have been a lot of M&As that have taken place over the years. And because we have a culture that really rewards individual performance, we like people to take responsibility. We hold them accountable for that. And I think it's a culture that people thrive in.
Lisa, you're relatively new to Hercules. How does this culture compare to your previous companies?
Well, this culture, one thing I enjoy about this culture, which is similar to my previous company, is that we're in growth mode. And so you're working together as a team to build new infrastructure, create value for the shareholders.
So let's talk about strategy. Has your overall strategy changed since you opened the company?
Our overall strategy has been fairly constant since the company was formed. We said early on that we were going to grow the company primarily through acquisition of existing assets, and that's what we've done. We've also focused very heavily on geographic expansion and international opportunities where we could move existing assets into those regions. And finally, we've always said we wanted to be a low-cost provider and be very efficient in the way we provide our services. And we try also to be very efficient and effective and disciplined in our financial strategies as well.
But in the energy industry, we see a lot of price volatility. Oil over $70, the price of natural gas all the way up to $8, $9, $10 at times. Does this affect your overall strategy?
Our strategy has largely remained the same, and really when you look at the longer-term fundamentals, we don't think things are going to change very much. I think it's very likely that we'll see very robust natural gas prices in the U.S. As we get into 2008 and probably in the near future after that. Although we see some weakness in natural gas in the near term, and as we get into the shoulder season as far as natural gas injection into storage, I think we could see some additional weakness during that part of the year, but that won't continue very long.
Randy, several times now you've mentioned that you're a shallow water operator. Where exactly is your base of operations today?
Well, today a lot of our business comes from the Gulf of Mexico. That's where we started the company. We also have operations in the Far East, the Middle East, West Africa, India. We have had some operations in Latin America. We have operations in Mexico. And that'll probably continue on into the future.
Randy, we've talked a lot about Todco. But Todco also had a land-based operation. Is it your intention to continue with this business?
Well, I think as the name implies, Hercules Offshore, we've always said that we were not going to be a land player. We want to have offshore assets. So we're actively marketing our land rigs. As we find a buyer for that at an attractive price, we'll sell that business. We're not in a big rush to do that because those businesses and the rigs that we have operating on land are generating very good returns right now. But I do think that as soon as we can sell those, we will.
Randy, one thing we all know for certain is that this industry is constantly changing. How have you seen the markets you serve change over the last 3 years?
Well, I think shortly after we formed the company, we saw a dramatic ramp up in activity in the Gulf of Mexico. We saw a continued migration of rigs out of the Gulf of Mexico. And as a result, our business was expanding, utilization and day rates were expanding both in the jackup business as well as our lift boat business. And 18 months ago, we saw some record day rates in both of those businesses as we approached almost 100% utilization across the board. Since then, I'd say over the past 12 months, we've seen the markets weaken somewhat for jackups. It's still a very good market, but we don't have the same level of utilization that we had a year ago. That'll probably change in the future, but at least right now it's where it is, and it'll probably stay that way throughout the rest of this year. As we get into 2008, we should see some improvement. Fortunately, the international markets are still very strong.
But how do you think things will play out as we go into 2008?
I think as we get into 2008, we're going to see several things happen. We expect to see several additional rigs leave the Gulf of Mexico for other markets. We expect to see commodity prices start to recover late 2007, early 2008. We've also seen a number of property transactions on the shelf in the Gulf of Mexico. And when that happens, the people that are selling those properties aren't going to spend any money drilling. The people that are newly acquiring those properties, it takes them time to get their arms around the new properties and decide what the drilling prospects are. So that slows things down. We've also had a situation because we've had increasing production on land in the U.S., We've had increasing LNG imports this year because there weren't any other places for those cargoes to go. That really has created a situation where we've had a little more gas than we really need in the U.S. That's probably going to dry up as we get into 2008, and we think we'll see additional demand coupled with a slightly shrinking supply of rigs in the Gulf of Mexico that should help things there. Internationally, we expect things to continue to be very strong. All the international markets are good right now, and even with the new build rigs that are coming into the market that are likely to move into those international segments, there's enough demand to take up all that slack as we get through 2008.
Randy, we'll have to see how this all plays out. Lisa, Randy, thank you very much for joining me for this discussion. I'm Richard Loomis with World Energy. Next up, we visit with John Wren, Chief Operating Officer, and Laura Guthrie, the Executive Vice President of Human Resources. Be sure to stay with us. Welcome back. Today we're visiting with Hercules Offshore. Hercules has grown exponentially over the last few years to have more than 33 jackups, 65 lift boats, and more than 4,000 employees. Continuing our discussion, we're joined by John Wren, Chief Operating Officer, and Laura Guthrie, Executive Vice President of Human Resources. Let's begin this discussion by talking about the Gulf of Mexico.
Gulf of Mexico, currently there's 90 jackups and 7 submersibles operating in the Gulf, which are bottom founded. Currently we're operating 22 units that fit that mold, 3 submersibles and 19 jackups.
What about the jackups that are leaving the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah, we've had about 36 jackups depart the U.S. Gulf of Mexico over the last 3 years. Some of those have been lost by storm. The others have deployed internationally, Mexico, Middle East, Southeast Asia. As those operators are offering 2- and 3-year contract terms, the rates are very attractive. There's a number of factors that draw the jackup players out of the Gulf of Mexico, aside from term and day rate. Your insurance cost, post the 3 hurricanes back-to-back that we had, as of last year, our insurance cost increased 300% for rigs operating in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's that reason also. And also from a labor issue, labor is very tight in the Gulf of Mexico. When you go international, you have better access to labor.
Talk about labor. Laura, how do you attract the people that you need?
Well, it's been very difficult because the labor market is very tight right now. It has been really since Hurricane Katrina and Rita. We try to do everything we can to be as creative as possible. We offer sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses. We have an employee referral program for employees that refer somebody into the company. Of course, we offer competitive compensation and benefits. But I think one of the most unique things that Hercules offers is really a culture where people can come in and think for themselves. We're very creative. We move very fast, decisive in what we do, and that creates opportunities for people who look for that kind of a challenge. So we've leveraged that to the workforce that we've been hiring.
And I'd like to add to that. I think that if you're out there looking around who to go to work for in the offshore drilling business, we've grown, as you mentioned, exponentially. We're also committed to continue to grow. We're not here to flip the company. So if people get in this business looking for a future, also a future close to home in the Gulf of Mexico, even though we're going to grow internationally, with all the unrest globally, there's a lot of people now that want to stay closer to home. And we are here. We're the leader in the barge business. We're the leader in the jackup business. We're the leader in the lift boat business domestically. That's a great place to be for these people that want to stay close to home.
You make a good point, John, but as the leader, how does this affect your business?
I think it gave us a great opportunity, both flexibility on the domestic front. If you look at our footprint in the Gulf of Mexico, it goes from Mobile to Matamoros. So as people looking for rigs, our mobilization costs are much less. Likewise, in the lift boat business, being the largest lift boat provider, we have assets spread across the Gulf. So the mobilization time and cost are much less of an issue than if you had a smaller fleet and you're trying to reach and go further. But I think as you look globally, they have operations when we acquired Tadco in Mexico, Venezuela, Trinidad, Brazil, and Angola. We had operations internationally in West Africa, Qatar, and India. And we can grow either via the lift boat front or the jackup front. So we think our operations opportunities are great over the next couple of years.
We've been talking about a lot of diverse assets and a lot of growth. Laura, how does this affect the people of Hercules?
Well, it's certainly been a challenge. Integration is always a challenge, merging two companies together. Much of the business is very similar, so that part of it's not too hard. It's how we go about doing the business, operationalizing it, policies and procedures. We're just working as fast as we can to get those combined. And really, we're in a unique position to take the best of both worlds and come up with something that's really a best practice. And I think we've been very effective at what we've been able to create in a very short amount of time. And everybody's excited about a new opportunity to be part of a growth.
I think one of the things that's really been a key to the integration process is we have a very open culture. No secrets. We really believe in good communications. So I think it's helped ease some of the concerns. If they had a question, they were addressed, they were answered. Very little politics, no games. We're here with a common goal to be the most successful driller out there.
And you do that really in a high-touch way by going out and talking to employees face-to-face. That's the best way to build your credibility and listen to what they have to say. And I think the management team's done a very good job, again, in a very short amount of time, to make that happen.
Well, we've certainly talked a lot about Hercules. Let's talk about the clients. Who are you working with?
Our largest client historically for Hercules has been Chevron, which if you look at the largest leaseholder in the Gulf of Mexico, it's Chevron. From there we go to Apache, which is the second largest leaseholder, W&T Offshore, third largest leaseholder. So our clients dovetail very well with their acreage positions in the Gulf.
Well, looking at the clients, are you able to take advantage of the deep drilling opportunities?
On the barge drilling business in the marshes, yes. We can drill a number of those of our rigs are capable of drilling to 20,000 foot and deeper. Now typically on most of our rig fleet in the Gulf of Mexico can drill up to 20 to about 22,000 feet depending on kind of well configuration. But no, we can definitely address the deep drilling in the marshes on the barge business. And we have a couple assets currently as configured. They can drill the deep wells on the shelf. Now we do have candidates that we can upgrade if we deem it necessary.
You mentioned the barge business. And how do you handle the restrictions associated with this business?
Well, you know, the biggest problem you have in the barge business is the permitting process. And of course, the predominance of our work is in the state of Louisiana. And rightly so. I think the environmental impact or potential environmental impact from a barge operation has been addressed, so it's a very thorough process, and I think it's a collaborative effort with the contractor and the operator to work with the state of Louisiana to ensure we minimize our footprint. So yes, it is frustrating at times from the turnaround time where you might have rig downtime waiting on a permit, but I think in the bigger picture it's the right way to approach the business.
I understand your point. Let's talk a little bit about the lift boat business. How do these two businesses fit together?
The lift boat business is tied more to maintenance and production, the more downstream from the drilling rig, if you will. So it is not as cyclical and tied to the commodity price as a drilling business is, because they want to maintain production. Also, the structures offshore in the U.S. Gulf of Mexico have to be maintained and surveyed once a year. So there's always that kind of base level of work. So it's been a very solid business. Now we are the largest provider. We have about a 45% market share of the domestic lift boats. Primarily we do maintenance, commissioning, decommissioning, and well intervention work. It's a very much of a spot market, i.e. very short-term work, so we're constantly marketing vessels. But I think as you saw post-Ivan, Katrina, and Rita, the business made a significant change. The backlog of work just quadrupled. So the business has been very, very steady, very solid. Our lift boat operation since inception has not had a lost time incident rate, which speaks volumes for those guys, because they're under the same pressure that we are in drilling.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Hercules has been on a rapid growth pattern. Where do you see all this going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think our goal is to continue to grow. I think that if we believe if you're not growing, you need to get out of that business. And so if you look at our business, I would say the only non-core assets right now for us is our land business, which is in Venezuela, the U.S., and Trinidad. 9 units. We don't want to grow it, so we're going to try. Eventually, we'll exit that business. The rest of our 3 business segments, we intend to continue to grow. We think there's a great opportunity to continue to offer shallow water services globally, and also to be one of the few companies that is solely focused on the shallow water service business, as others have went out to deeper waters, and to really increase our level of delivering professional services. So I think our upside is tremendous.
Well, one thing's for certain, John, it's going to be fun to watch. Laura, John, thank you both for joining me for this discussion. I'm Richard Loomis for World Energy Television. Thank you very much for watching.